The Real Jail Experiment, Part 5 of 8. Fire and Hooch. The halfway point is where the shine wears off and the strain shows. 6 weeks is a long stretch to pretend. By the time you reach the middle, routines have hardened, alliances have formed, and temptations have multiplied. The experiment is no longer new. It is normal. And normal is always the most dangerous point. The pod has learned to live with the doors open. Phones rotate, meals happen, elders mediate. But underneath, a younger current has been rising. Fire and Hooch, symbols of rebellion. One burns clean, one rots slow. Together they test the difference between freedom and license. The deputies feel it before they see it. Alarms sharpen. Eyes track cameras tighter. Because they know men who have tasted freedom will always press for more. A little liquor brewed in a hidden stash. A little fire sparked to smoke or burn. These are not random. They are symbols. They say, if you give us the key, we will try the door. The question is not whether Hooch will show up. The question is whether men will let it run the house or let the house run it. Sheriff Higgins walks the line no one else is willing to risk. He doesn't double the lockdown. He doesn't flood the pod with bodies. He trusts. He trusts that men given dignity will grow into it. He trusts that freedom, once tasted, cannot be untasted. That is the real gamble. Because you can shut a door, but you cannot shut a mind that has glimpsed light. That is why 23-1 feels different after a week of being unlocked. The body can be caged again, but the memory of freedom lingers like smoke. Every man in that pod now knows he can live another way. And once you know, you can't unknow. The OGs sense the shift. Some step back, exhausted from carrying the weight of order. They've proven their point. They've shown leadership can exist. Now the young ones want the wheel. They push boundaries not out of malice, but out of hunger. Hunger to see how far freedom bends before it breaks. And the pod teeters between stewardship and recklessness. A bottle of Hooch passes hands. A lighter flicks in the corner. Laughter sharpens into daring. This is the moment every deputy dreads. Because fire spreads, and Hooch clouds judgment faster than steel bars can contain. An alarm rips the pod open. Deputies flood the unit. Searchlights cut through the day room. Hands go to walls. The air smells like smoke and fermented sugar. Freedom feels suddenly fragile again. But Sheriff Higgins doesn't call it failure. He calls it feedback. Because he knows trust isn't proven by men never slipping. It's proven by how a community responds when they do. The halfway point is supposed to be the breaking point. But instead of collapse, the pod recalibrates. Some men sober up. Some men realize they almost lost the only taste of freedom they've had in years. One man says, "We messed this up, we go back. I ain't going back." That's the sermon nobody expected. The experiment has worked its way under the skin. Not because nobody breaks rules, but because now men know the weight of rules they write for themselves. Fire can destroy, but fire can also purify. Hooch can poison, but it can also expose who still runs from their pain instead of facing it. The pod is learning what every free man learns. Liberty is not the absence of limits, but the presence of responsibility. And responsibility cannot be forced. It can only be chosen. At the halfway mark, Sheriff Higgins stands on his gamble. Trust more, police less, and believe that the memory of freedom will outlast the taste of Hooch. Because once you've seen the light, even behind bars, 23-1 will never feel the same again. But tomorrow, the test of freedom changes form. Not fire, not Hooch, but paper. One sheet, one question, one choice. Do you point the finger in silence, or do you carry the weight in daylight? In a world where the inmate code says snitches get stitches, even a private vote can feel like betrayal. But sometimes the truth doesn't need a tally. Sometimes one man standing up can dissolve a storm before it starts. Tomorrow the pod learns whether justice comes from secrecy or from the courage to take responsibility. The Real Jail Experiment continues, Part 6 of 8, The Vote.